Welcome. It is Verdict with Ted Cruz, Week in Review. Ben Ferguson with you. And here are the big stories that you may have missed that we talked about this week. First up, the policies of the left in the upcoming midterm elections, well, they're totally radical. We'll explain it all, exactly what they're running on. Also, one of those radicals is in Texas, and he's running for the U.S. Senate. His name, James Talarico. So what has he said in his past? We've got the receipts. And finally, if you love college sports, you're going to need to know about the NIL college sports bill and how it could fundamentally change sports for the better. It's the Week in Review, and it starts right now. I want to move the midterms and talk about something that I actually think is very, one, interesting, but two, why every time when I'm having to debate this on TV, it's, the Republicans are in trouble, Donald Trump's in trouble, the midterms are going to be a bloodbath, they're going to be a disaster. And I keep saying the same thing over and over again. Look at who the Democrats are running. There are radicals in the Democratic Party that they are running instead of what I would argue would be the easiest way to win if you think you have an advantage. And that would be to run moderate Democrats that are like not crazy and hate law enforcement and want to abolish ICE and want to get rid of law and order and basic things in America like waste, fraud, and abuse, for example, and the funds that we've seen that have been stolen through Medicare, Medicaid, and hospice, and the list goes on and it keeps growing. But right now, I'm not that sour on the midterms, Senator, because I see who they're running. And I think that's their biggest liability. And some of these are in very big races where I'm sitting there going, if you're sane, you wouldn't have taken this risk with this candidate. But I also think it tells you about the Democratic Party. They're not sane. They want to run these radical extremist candidates that have said insane things in their past.
Yeah, look, I got to say, you're right that this is potentially a bumpy political environment in November, although I'm still optimistic. I'm optimistic we hold and grow our majorities in both the House and Senate. I don't think that is off the table at all. I think it's very much in flux right now. But I will say that the Democrats are helping us by nominating some of the craziest loons I've ever seen. Listen, and parties can do a lot to affect their outcome in the general. If you nominate strong candidates who are widely appealing, who are attractive, who have real records of success, that can be formidable. And if you nominate lunatics who scare the voters, that can hand the election to your opponents. And I got to say, I think there's no candidate in the country that better embodies just how bat-crap crazy the Democrats have gotten than Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner, yeah. their nominee for Senate in Maine. Now, let's start off. Look, Maine is one of the obvious pickup opportunities for the Democrats. Maine is a blue state. Susan Collins, the Republican senator, is the only Republican elected in all of New England. And so in a state that votes by a large margin against Donald Trump, if you're the Democrats, that's an obvious place to say, all right, let's target a pickup there. And in fact, Janet Mills, Democrat governor, relatively popular in the state, was running. And yet the party has gone so crazy that their own governor was deemed not crazy enough. And instead they went with Graham Plattner. Look, the governor might have been...
By the way, I wish you were joking, but you're really not. I mean, if you're a extreme Democrat 3-4 years ago, you're now moderate in the Democratic Party.
So who is Graham Plattner? He has described himself as a communist. It used to be the socialists were the extremes. I cannot think of another major Democrat nominee who is self-described as a communist, but Graham Plattner, that's how he described his own political and economic philosophy. Graham Plattner had, and you've heard this because at this point most people had a Nazi tattoo on his chest. Not just a Nazi tattoo, a Totenkopf. What is a Totenkopf? It is a Nazi skull and crossbones that was the symbol of the SS that ran the concentration camps in Germany and throughout Europe in the World War II. That's what he put on his. So you've got an actual communist Nazi is their nominee. And by the way, we've seen Democrats rushing up to Maine to support him. Bernie Sanders this week is up there campaigning because the communists and the Nazis standing together. But I got to say, it is amazing. You might think, okay, a Nazi communist, that's pretty out there. That's going to be tough to defend. This guy's Oppo file, I don't know who's doing the Oppo research on him, but he's having more fun than anybody has ever had in the history of politics, because every day something comes out. And I'm going to repeat some of it, but I'm going to give a caution that most of what's in his Oppo file I can't repeat, because this is a family-friendly podcast, and this guy is so profane, he's so obscene. So one of the most recent comments that he put on Reddit that just came out was, quote, "You don't have much experience with Latin American hookers, do you?" That would be the Democrat nominee for Senate in Maine. What else did he say? He also attacked a veteran, an Army combat veteran who received the Purple Heart. He did this online, and he called him a dumb MFer, although he did not abbreviate MFer. And he said this Army combat veteran didn't deserve to live.
Yeah.
This guy wants to be a United States senator. And by the way, just today, he was questioned by it, about it, and asked if he wanted to apologize. Give a listen to what he said about when he was given the opportunity to apologize for calling an Army combat veteran and a Purple Heart recipient a dumb MFer who didn't deserve to live. Here was Plattner's response.
I was wondering if you regret the post about the Purple Heart veteran, if you think you need to apologize to him, what you would say to voters who might be upset by it.
Article 4 towards the infantry. Any attempt to say that I disrespect veterans is slanderous and offensive.
Do you think you owe him an apology?
Do you know how many of my friends have Purple Hearts? Do you know how many of my friends got wounded?
I'm sure a lot.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Thank you.
I mean, that's what you call a double down there, sir.
So no apology. Doubling down, by the way, he has some bizarre things. He talks about how women who are raped, it's their fault. He attacks African Americans. He says they're cheap and they don't tip. Oddly enough, he also wrote about, this is bizarre fantasies about how every time he sees a porta potty, he wants to go inside the porta potty and masturbate in the porta potty. Look, this is weird. This is not mainstream. This guy is extreme. And you know what Elizabeth Warren says about someone who says all that?
She likes him. Vote for him. Send money.
Even more, she says, quote, "He's my kind of man."
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was her quote from this past. Yeah, he's my kind of man. A guy with a Nazi tattoo who's a communist who says he likes to do that in a porta potty. There you go.
And understand, look, the Democrats are so extreme. He can attack and mock and insult women. He can attack African Americans. He can attack Jews. He can attack veterans. And they don't care. They all circle the wagons. He's our guy because he's a Democrat. And they're unwilling. There is nothing too much. By the way, they love to call every Republican a Nazi. And yet, when they have a guy that puts a Nazi tattoo on his own chest, they're good with that. And they're not backing off. And not only that, but you look at the corrupt corporate media. Just this week, what did Time Magazine do? They put him on the cover. And it's entitled Party Crasher. Yeah. Now, I got to say, Time Magazine, it's interesting because they have a long history of putting Nazis on their cover. They were fond of putting Adolf Hitler on their cover. I did have some fun online when I said, hey, Grok, what is a Totenkopf? And does Time have any history of putting Nazis on their cover? And you can read the whole response that came up to that, but the short answer is yes. And I got to say, having seen this guy's daily drip of Oppo, between now and November is going to be interesting because I guarantee you there's a lot more coming.
Now, if you want to hear the rest of this conversation, you can go back and listen to the full podcast from earlier this week. Now on to story number 2. Let's dive into who this guy is here because you go back to 2022. James Talarico said it is existential, all right, to reduce meat consumption.
What was that word again?
Existential. You're going to mock me on. You're going to mock me on the show tonight, aren't you? I've been talking a long time today, Senator.
Okay, try that word. There's a T in there.
Go ahead. I'll take the master class from you. You go ahead and say the word that I'm having a problem with tonight. I'm more than happy at midnight for you to say that word on my behalf.
That would be existential.
Existential. Sorry. There we go.
There we go.
Good. I can copy the word from you.
It's not that he has extrasensory abilities. That's something different. If he had ESP, that would be a different story.
The lickings I take, it's unbelievable. So back to 2022, and James, this is a guy that in Texas, I said this on Harris Faulkner's show on Fox Today when they were talking about the prime, like, in Texas, we like meat. In Texas, we are ranchers. We are farmers. We're not vegans. We don't do this like mystery fake meat stuff. Like, that's just not who we are. But this is what he doesn't want you to know about him. Back in 2022, as a principal, by the way, while saying this, he was wearing a mask, the COVID mask for the press conference. Here he is in his own words. Take a listen.
We have, I think, heard more and more issues of animal welfare. I think not just because it's the right thing to do and the moral thing to do, but also it's, as all of you know, necessary to fight climate change. It is now existential that we try to reduce our meat consumption and that we try to respect animals in all aspects of society. And so I am proud to say that our campaign has officially become a non-meat campaign. So we are only buying vegan products from our local vegan businesses. Some of you may know Big Nona's. They were little Nona's, and then they opened up brick and mortar, so another Big Nona's. But we just got our pizza from there today. And so the point is that I think all of us, not just policymakers, but everyone has to take personal responsibility in this effort.
I've never in my life heard a vegan campaign being propped up, much less like, you want to do that in Seattle? That actually may work. You want to do it in San Francisco? That may actually work. You want to do this up in New York City? I'm not even sure it would work there, actually, because they actually like normal food there. But saying our campaign as a responsible candidate is a vegan campaign, like that in Texas, and this goes back to like everyone needs to know who this guy is.
Well, look, and I get that you're taking this very personally because you owned a barbecue restaurant, and so he's taking a direct assault on your livelihood. Just wait till he comes out for banning guns and banning radio. I mean, you know, yeah. Ben will lose his mind.
I will. That is the fact.
You know, it's actually ironic that in 2018 when I was running against Beto of our 50-stop bus tour, my guess is a third of those stops were barbecue restaurants. If you're traveling little towns around the state, a lot of times barbecue restaurants are where you'll do a rally. And we were at one barbecue restaurant, I think it was in Columbus, Texas, a little town kind of halfway between Houston and Austin. And we're there, and PETA was there protesting me. They had signs out, and they were protesting people for the ethical treatment of animals. They were protesting against me. And I joked at the time. I said, look, thank you. I'm really glad PETA is here. And then they've underscored the stakes of this campaign, which is if you elect Beto O'Rourke, he's going to ban barbecue.
Yeah.
And look, it was a laugh line there. I didn't realize that fast forward to 2026, you're going to have someone who literally believes barbecue is immoral. And listen, if someone chooses to be vegetarian or vegan or what have you, look, to be clear, my wife, Heidi, is vegetarian. That's a choice you can make. I am an enthusiastic carnivore.
Yes, you and I had barbecue tonight, literally. That's like at a campaign event.
We had jalapeno sausage. It was good stuff. Jalapeno cheddar. And there was some sort of, I don't know, what was the veg? Was that like celery or something? It was jalapeno cheddar. There was something else. It was it was in the sausage. Did you not eat the sausage?
Oh, was it? Oh, I didn't have the sausage, but I also had the chicken. I had some of the brisket. You know, I was like carnivore, all like everything there. I thought you got down to the salad part.
You went with
did you look at the salad part? There were some nice greens there for you, sir.
Okay, so you went with the girly meats, like you said. I went to the barbecue restaurant and I had turkey.
It was there, and I ate it. I feel good about it too.
Look, I think you're prepared to volunteer for Talarico's campaign. I mean, if you're boycotting the sausage. That's not
far. I ate the sausage. It was good. I just didn't notice the green in there. I look over that stuff. I look for just pure, is that meat? Is that cheese? I'm all in.
All right. So, look, it's the self-righteous way in which he lectures that.
Yes.
And it's saying, all of you are morally inferior to me. And I'm going to give you an example. We're going to play some of these, but I'm going to give you an example of some of the things he said. He has said God is non-binary.
Yeah.
Now, that's pretty out there. He has also said...
You know what? We've got the montage on that. You want to play that real quick?
We will in a second, but I want to just walk through some of it. He has also said they're not just two sexes. There are actually 6 biological sexes. 6.
What day in creation did God do the 6 sexes? I'm just curious. Was that on like the 8th day in the Bible? You just add that in there? I just want to know when that happened.
And by the way, your former employer, CNN... when they were covering a story about, I couldn't resist that, about Paxton hitting him for saying there's 6 biological sexes, CNN put a chyron on the bottom of the screen. Paxton falsely claims Talarico said there's 6 biological sexes. He's on video. We're going to play it for you.
Yeah, he's on video, yeah.
And are you going to believe CNN or your own lying ears? He has said that the Bible justifies abortion, that he is pro-abortion because of the Bible.
And by the way, he's a pastor, so he's got to be right? Because he's a pastor, so therefore he would never lie about what the Bible says.
He has said Jesus was a radical feminist. He has said white men are the greatest domestic terrorist threat in our country.
You're Hispanic, so you don't have to worry about being... I'm the one that's the target there.
Well, he has said that illegal immigrants are his, quote, constituents. He has posted tips to evade ICE. And he said we should approach the southern border like our front door and put a welcome mat on it.
Yes.
When he was a school teacher, he made his 6th graders write Obama memoirs. And he has said fascism will be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. Listen to some of the greatest hits from James Talarico.
This is the guy you voted for.
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
There are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6.
God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
Oh, really?
God is non-binary. And by the way, the 6 sexes, just for CNN clarity, as you mentioned, you're exactly right. We have the tape. So your headline, you might want to fix it, alter it, change it, whatever it is. But these are just some of the highlights of what this guy believes in. And again, they are trying to make him, and I do think this is the most dangerous part, as you mentioned earlier. He looks like he's a really nice guy who's a pastor, soft-spoken. He's very charismatic. That's what makes him so dangerous until you actually go to his own words and his own posts and his own speeches, Senator. That's when you find out what a radical he actually is.
Well, yes, but look, at least the guy loves America, loves the American flag, and, let's actually listen to his own words. I want you to listen to what he said about the American flag. This, again, is his own words. Give a listen.
I often think when reclaiming symbols, I think about the American flag. I think the Confederate flag is a symbol of treason and terrorism, but the American flag is such a complicated symbol for most of us, and in many ways, like Jesus, like the cross, it's been co-opted, and in some ways, its true meaning has been betrayed.
By the way, he said that, Senator, in a church, that the American flag is a complicated symbol for most of us. The American flag has never been complicated for me. I don't know. Maybe you look at it differently.
Well, he says the American flag is a complicated symbol, like Jesus and like the cross. Those are the 3 examples he gives of complicated symbols. Yeah, I don't think any of the 3 are complicated. And the idea that you're running to be a U.S. senator and you look at the American flag and think it's a complicated symbol. Yes, if you are a leftist. Yes, if you are a Marxist. Yes, if you are someone who has bought into cultural Marxism and believes America is irredeemably racist, believes that we are a nation of oppressors oppressing victims, and that his goal is to overthrow the oppressors. And that is, listen, Graham Plattner in Maine is more explicit
the guy with the
about his
Nazi
left wing.
tattoo, the SS tattoo, right? Just to remind people who we're talking about right now. This is the guy that actually mocked and made fun of an American soldier being shot, saying he should have died, and then doubled down on it. And the same guy that has an SS tattoo.
Yes, and look, and who is also an open racist. I mean, he has mocked African Americans. He wears a Nazi tattoo and is demeaning to Jews. He's demeaning to women. He says women rape victims are asking for it. Plattner is at least out in the open about who he is. But Talarico, let's take the racism of the Democrat Party and listen. Here's something Talarico said in another church about his own race, about being white. Give a listen.
For me, prophetic voices like Jesus have helped me reckon with my own whiteness, my own masculinity, my own certainty, my own ego. It's a never-ending process, and it's a painful process.
I got to give him self-awareness credit there, Senator. Like, when he says it's helped him deal with his masculinity, I think he's nipped that problem in the bud, going vegan and talking the way he does. Like, the Lord heard those prayers. I mean, if he was working on the masculinity issue, he has nailed it.
There's no doubt about that. If you listen to what he's saying, and he's in a church, he behind him, if you're watching the video, he has a giant cross behind him, what he calls that what is it, complicated image of the cross, like the American flag and like Jesus. And he said the prophetic voices like Jesus helped him deal, let's take the racist aspect, his own whiteness, which is a hard thing to reckon with. Look, I'm sorry, in my book, being white is not something to be ashamed of, is not a symbol that you are a bad human being. But in the leftist world, white equals evil. This is the Marxist dichotomy. It's why I'm saying he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. What he's saying there, everyone white is an oppressor. You're all evil. You're all illegitimate. That is the same thing. Everyone who is black, you're all oppressed, and you should overthrow your evil oppressors. That is the same garbage that says America has a racist history from day one. That is who we are, as irredeemably racist. It is a lie. Now play the second clip of him talking about his masculinity.
No need to sit and cry over, your whiteness or your masculinity.
Right.
Use it.
Yep.
Use it to do something.
Yeah.
Let's be productive.
Wait, which one is it now? I'm a little confused. Are we masculine on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, where we just like turn that completely off? Which one is it? I just want to know.
Okay. And this is where you really ought to be watching this in video, because look, Talarico is a little dude.
Yeah, he is.
He may be the least likely person on planet Earth to be complaining about his overwhelming masculinity. Look, Ben, you're a big dude. I'm pretty sure you could hip check this guy into the next zip code. He also, in another clip that I don't have, explained that he never played sports at all growing up. I believe that.
I believe that. Yes. I believe that as well.
I will say, if you were listening to him speak and you were assembling 1,000 adjectives to describe him, masculine would not be one of them.
Would not be on that list.
I'm just saying, I don't think anyone would. And yet, he described that he was crying over his masculinity, that he was too masculine. It made him cry. By the way,
it just wasn't fair to everybody else, Senator. It wasn't fair.
If you're crying over your masculinity, it may not be your masculinity you're crying over. Like I'm just saying that there's almost something definitionally false.
Yeah.
But this guy is extreme, which means the Democrats love him.
As before, if you want to hear the rest of this conversation on this topic, you can go back and download the podcast from earlier this week to hear the entire thing. I want to get back to the big story, number 3 of the week you may have missed. You mentioned something I want to clarify. You said that you get 2 transfers. This is the first time in my life I've ever wanted to be a witness in anything in government, in the Senate or the House. As a witness, I would ask this question to the body, so I'll ask it to you. If I go to a school freshman year and the coach that recruits me, he quits, disappears, leaves, whatever, I get to transfer. What if I go to another school and then that coach takes another job? Do I get another transfer?
Yes.
Okay.
Anytime your coach quits, it's not fair to you to punish you. If you were recruited for a coach and the coach leaves.
So it's not just a minimum of one. It's unlimited there.
Right. In that exception, because that's a legitimate reason to leave. And that's not going to happen as a widespread matter. That's not going to lead to, every starting basketball player being recruited away at the end of every season from a team, which is what we're seeing sometimes now.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, I laugh. There's football teams now where there was like 0 members from the prior year on the football team.
Yeah.
And that's a football team, which is huge.
Yeah.
So who is against this legislation, and where's the pushback coming from?
Well, I have to say, so we introduced it this week, and there's been surprisingly little pushback. It has been very well received. As I said, people were astonished that we could get there. Things are so broken down and partisan that they just believed there was no way Democrats and Republicans could come together.
Yeah,
and
Cruz,
I got to say,
clear, pretty liberal guy. Like you and him y'all are not usually 1-on-1 like this.
Well, actually, Chris and I work on a number of things together. Maria Cantwell is my lead partner on this. She's the ranking member on Commerce. And we literally have been negotiating. For the last month, we've been spending 6 to 8 hours a day in a room negotiating directly, provision by provision. It has been painstaking, and we had to reach middle grounds where there are provisions in there that don't go as far as I would like, but don't go as far as she would like, and that's how you have to get there. But our opposition is coming from two places. Number one, the extreme far left, and number two, big money. And let me break that down. The extreme far left, to date, only one senator out of 100 has publicly criticized that. That's Chris Murphy, the very liberal senator from Connecticut, who's blasted this, says this doesn't do enough for athletes and it just helps millionaires. And it's, look, the far left is listening to union bosses and trial lawyers that want a system where, number one, there are constant lawsuits. Every university is being sued nonstop. Every conference being sued nonstop. Every league is being sued nonstop. And number two, every student athlete is an employee. They're unionized. They're union members. They're paying union dues. Those union dues are going to fund Democrat candidates. Both of those are terrible outcomes for college sports. And a whole lot of the programs, the historically black colleges and universities have said if that happens, they'll shut down their entire athletic department. I mean, that's the consequence. That would end up taking away athletic opportunity for, over time, millions of kids. So that's a terrible outcome. But that's one area of pushback, is the very far left. The other area of pushback is big money. And I mentioned that we're on a path to consolidation in 30 to 50 schools. In college football, there are 2 conferences that account for more than 2/3 of the revenue, and that is the SEC and the Big Ten. That's where the eyeballs are. They generate massive revenue because, look, that's where most of the best football in America is being played, is the SEC and Big Ten. Not exclusively, but very heavily, those 2 conferences. There has been a lot of talk in those 2 conferences about merging and forming a super league. Now, I think that would be a terrible outcome. You'd end up with the rich getting richer, but all of the rest of college sports would be left behind. It would basically transform the other schools into essentially
I would describe as Division II. You wouldn't be able to compete at the same level.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have the same quality players. Anybody that cared about football and wanted to play at the highest level and play for national championship would go to the super conference, right? Like right now, you want to go to the SEC, and if you're from the Northeast, you may want to go in other schools. But in general, that's the holy grail. You do what you just described and have them 2 come together. Every other school in America is a loser now.
And by the way, it's even worse than that, because they lose essentially all of their TV revenue, which funds the rest of their athletic department. So the other schools cancel all the non-revenue sports. They slash athletics altogether. They eliminate scholarships. So you end up with millions of kids over time not being able to go to school to play sports. And it's not just those kids, because an awful lot of eyeballs, people learn about a school by watching March Madness, by watching sports, and they end up applying to the school.
Yeah,
and a Gonzaga, I mean, and they end up, it drives, when your school does well in athletics, your applications soar, your donations from alumni soar, and so you end up badly damaging a bunch of schools, not just in sports, but altogether, and hurting universities. So what does this bill do? Number one, it explicitly prohibits a super league. It prohibits the Big Ten and the SEC from combining. It just says, no, that's bad for sports, it's bad for athletes, it's bad for football. That is prohibited. Now, you know what? the leadership of the SEC in particular is not happy about prohibiting a Super League. But secondly, so the way I looked at this problem, there are two elements. There's a cost element and a revenue element. On the cost side, you want to slow down the out-of-control spiraling that is bankrupting most of the programs so that the programs can stay vibrant and kids can keep having these opportunities. But on the revenue side, we looked hard for how do we grow the revenue that is available to fund college sports. And what we do is we allow colleges to join together and negotiate for media rights jointly. That, I believe, will significantly increase the revenue. So, for example, the number one source of eyeballs and revenue in TV is the NFL. It's massive.
Yep.
The number two is college football. And yet, amazingly, even though a lot more people watch college football than the NBA makes billions more in its media contracts. And there's a reason. The NBA negotiates as one unit. You don't have the Houston Rockets negotiating against the Knicks and fighting each other. And yet in college conferences, that's what you have. So this allows conferences to come together. It's voluntary, so no one's forced to come together.
Yeah, no one's forced to.
But it lets them come together and negotiate jointly for media rights. I believe that would expand by billions of dollars, the money coming in, which means there's more money for the other sports. And we write in that if you do this, if you get joint media rights, you must maintain every single roster spot and every single scholarship spot for women's and men's sports, for Olympic sports, for track and field, for tennis, for all the non-revenue sports. You got to maintain them if you're getting a lot more money through football. And so it's designed to be a win-win for everyone. But look, the leadership of the SEC has said that they're not interested. And I look, Greg Sankey I know well, Tony Petitti, who leads the Big Ten, I know him well. I've talked to both of them, and I've said, listen, this is voluntary. It only works if you guys choose to participate. That means the other schools have to offer you a good enough deal that y'all are making a lot more money, and so are they. That is a win-win for everyone. That's the outcome I hope we see, because I want to see college sports continue to be an amazing thing for athletes, for students, to continue to be an amazing thing for universities, and a great thing for fans. Look, it is an awesome thing to cheer on your school. And you asked about the Lane Kiffin rule. It provides that coaches cannot be hired away during the season or during the playoffs. We adopt the same rule as the NFL, which is you got to wait till the off season, because it's not fair to do what happened to the fans of Ole Miss, to take their coach right going into the playoffs. That's just wrong.
As always, thank you for listening to Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz. Ben Ferguson with you. Don't forget to download my podcast, and you can listen to my podcast every other day you're not listening to Verdict, or each day when you listen to Verdict afterwards. I'd love to have you as a listener to, again, the Ben Ferguson podcast, and we will see you back here on Monday morning.